The door swung open, and I froze. There she was, Emma, my wife of 5 years, kissing another man. Not just any man. Her boss, Ryan Carter. His hand was on her waist, pulling her close like he owned her. They were in the middle of the living room, surrounded by balloons and a banner that read, "Congratulations." Only it wasn't for me. It wasn't even close. My stomach dropped. My pulse roared in my ears. Everyone turned to look at me, their faces pale, eyes wide with shock. Glasses clinked as someone nervously set theirs down. A woman gasped, covering her mouth with both hands. Someone else muttered, "Oh no," under their breath. Emma pulled away from Ryan so fast she almost stumbled. Her lips were still red, swollen from the kiss. She stared at me, her blue eyes wild with panic. Ryan stepped back, running a hand through his slicked-back hair, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else but here. I couldn't move. My feet felt glued to the floor, but my mind raced. How long had this been going on? Was this why she stayed late at work all those nights? Why she always seemed distracted during dinner? All the little things I ignored, they slammed into me like a freight train. The room spun. People whispered behind fake smiles, pretending not to notice the disaster unfolding in front of them. Someone awkwardly tried to change the subject. "So, who wants cake?" But no one laughed. No one moved. And then it hit me. The truth smacked me across the face so hard I nearly staggered. This wasn't about excuses or explanations. It was over. Done. Whatever we had, whatever I thought we were building together, was gone. Crushed. Destroyed. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. My voice came out low, calm, but sharp enough to cut glass. "We're done," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "It's over." The room felt like it had been dipped in ice. Every face was frozen, every movement halted. Even the air seemed heavier, pressing down on me as if trying to crush what little resolve I had left. My words, "We're done," hung in the air, sharp and final, echoing louder than I intended. Emma's face crumbled. Her lips trembled, but no sound came out. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, like a fish gasping for water. Ryan shifted uncomfortably beside her, his polished demeanor cracking under the weight of everyone's stares. He cleared his throat, glancing around the room like he hoped someone would step in and save him from this nightmare. But no one did. The silence stretched on, broken only by the faint hum of the music playlist still playing softly in the background. Someone coughed nervously. Another person shuffled their feet, clearly unsure whether to stay or bolt for the door. The tension was suffocating, thick enough to choke on. I stood there, gripping the edge of the table behind me, my knuckles white. My mind raced, replaying everything that led to this moment. The late-night texts Emma swore were just work. The canceled date nights because she had too much on her plate. The way she always seemed distracted when I talked about our future. It all made sense now, sickeningly clear. "You can't mean that," Emma finally whispered, her voice trembling. She took a hesitant step toward me, her hands reaching out like she wanted to touch me, to fix this somehow. But I stepped back instinctively, putting space between us. Her touch would burn right now, it would feel like betrayal itself. "I do," I said firmly, my voice cutting through the quiet like a knife. "You think I'm blind? You think I didn't notice?" Her eyes filled with tears, spilling down her cheeks. "Please let me explain." "There's nothing to explain," I snapped, louder than I meant to. Heads turned, whispers erupted, but I didn't care anymore. "What am I supposed to say, Emma? That I'm okay with you kissing your boss at my party? In front of everyone?" Ryan finally spoke up, his voice weak and defensive. "Look, man, this isn't what it looks like." "Shut up," I barked, spinning to face him. His attempt to smooth things over only fueled my anger. "Don't even try to lie your way out of this. I saw you. Everyone saw you." He flinched, taking a step back. For a guy who always carried himself with confidence, he looked pathetic now, like a kid caught stealing cookies from the jar. Good. Let him feel the shame he deserved. Emma sobbed harder, shaking her head. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I never meant to hurt you." Then maybe you shouldn't have kissed him. I shot back, my voice rising again. Maybe you should have thought about that before you threw away 5 years of marriage. By now, the entire room was watching us like it was a bad soap opera. Some people looked sympathetic, others judgmental, and a few just plain uncomfortable. A woman near the snack table grabbed her coat, muttering something about needing fresh air. Another guy poured himself another drink, probably wishing he could disappear into his glass. And me? I was done. Done with the lies, the excuses, the pretending. This wasn't the life I signed up for. This wasn't the woman I married. I turned back to Emma, my jaw tight. I don't want to hear it. We're done. Over. Finished. Then, louder, so everyone could hear, I added, I'll file the papers tomorrow. Her knees buckled, and she sank onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. Ryan hovered awkwardly nearby, unsure whether to comfort her or run for the hills. Meanwhile, the guests began slipping away quietly, one by one, until the once cheerful party dissolved into an empty shell of its former self. As I walked toward the door, leaving them both behind, I felt something unexpected, relief, like a heavy chain had been lifted off my chest. Whatever came next, it couldn't be worse than this. I didn't plan to say it. Not like that. Not in front of everyone. But as I stood there, watching Emma cry and Ryan fumble for words, something inside me snapped. It wasn't just anger, it was clarity. A cold, hard realization that this marriage was over. And if they thought I'd slink away quietly, they were wrong. You want to explain? I said, my voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. Fine. Let me explain something to you. I turned to face the room, raising my voice so every single person could hear me. This woman, my wife, has been lying to me for God knows how long. She's been sneaking around with her boss while I sat at home wondering what I did wrong. The room went dead silent again. Even Emma stopped crying, staring at me with wide, tear-streaked eyes. Ryan shifted uncomfortably, his polished veneer cracking further. He opened his mouth to interrupt, but I held up a hand, silencing him before he could speak. Don't, I warned, my tone icy. You've done enough. Turning back to Emma, I took a deep breath. My heart pounded in my chest, but my voice stayed steady. I trusted you. I loved you. I gave you everything I had. And this is how you repay me? By humiliating me in front of our friends? Our family? She shook her head frantically, tears streaming down her face. No, no, please. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I shot back, my voice rising. I understand that I can't trust you anymore, that nothing about us is real. So here's what's going to happen. I'm filing for divorce. Today. Right now. In front of everyone. Gasps rippled through the room. Someone dropped a glass, shattering it on the floor. Emma looked like she'd been punched in the gut, her body collapsing into itself as she sobbed uncontrollably. Ryan stepped forward, his face pale. Man, come on. This isn't the way to handle this. Oh, shut up, I barked, spinning to glare at him. You think you're innocent in all this? You think you get to waltz in here, ruin someone else's life, and walk away clean? Newsflash, you're part of the problem. Maybe even the biggest part. He flinched, stepping back like I'd slapped him. Good. Let him feel the weight of what he'd done. Turning back to Emma, I softened my tone slightly. Not out of kindness, but because I wanted her to hear me clearly. We're done. Over. There's no fixing this. No second chances. You made your choice when you kissed him. Now I'm making mine. Her sobs grew louder, desperate. Please, don't do this. I'll leave him, I swear. Just give me another chance. No, I said firmly, shaking my head. It's too late for that. You had your chance and you blew it. Big time. For a moment I almost faltered. Seeing her like that, broken, pleading, it tugged at something deep inside me. Memories flashed in my mind. Our wedding day, lazy Sunday mornings, laughter over dinner. All those moments felt like lies now, tainted by what I'd seen tonight. But I couldn't let myself weaken. If I did, I'd end up right back where I started, trapped in a relationship built on deceit. So instead, I hardened my resolve. "Goodbye, Emma," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Then, without waiting for a response, I turned and walked toward the door. Behind me, the room erupted into chaos. People whispered furiously, some trying to console Emma, others glaring at Ryan like he was scum. I didn't stick around to see any of it. As I stepped outside, the cool night air hit my face, grounding me in reality. The sound of crickets chirping filled the silence, a stark contrast to the storm I'd left behind. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I needed. One call. That's all it would take to start unraveling the mess we'd become. My thumb hovered over the screen for a moment, hesitation creeping in. Once I hit send, there was no turning back. But then I remembered her lips on his, her hands gripping his shoulders, the look of guilt on her face when she saw me standing there. And just like that, my hesitation vanished. I pressed the call button. As I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white, memories flooded back. Pieces of our life together that now felt like fragments of a shattered mirror. Each one reflected something different. Love, trust, betrayal, lies. It was hard to believe how far we'd fallen. I remembered the day we met. Emma had walked into the office wearing a bright yellow dress that made her stand out like sunshine on a cloudy day. She laughed easily, smiled often, and had this way of making everyone feel important. We bonded over coffee breaks and late-night projects. And before long, friendship turned into something more. When she said yes to marrying me, I thought I'd won the lottery. But somewhere along the way, things changed. At first, it was small stuff, things I chalked up to stress or work pressure. Like the time she canceled date night because she had too much on her plate. Or when she started texting constantly during dinner, claiming it was just emails from clients. I told myself not to overthink it. After all, Ryan Carter was known for being demanding. Everyone at the office joked about how he expected his employees to live and breathe the company. But then came the bigger signs, the ones I ignored because facing them meant admitting something was wrong. The nights she stayed late at work became more frequent. Her phone always seemed to be on silent, face down on the table whenever we were together. And those weekends she claimed she needed to catch up on reports? Looking back, it was obvious what she was really doing. Still, I convinced myself I was being paranoid. Maybe I wasn't paying enough attention to her. Maybe I'd let us drift apart without realizing it. So I tried harder. I planned surprise weekend getaways, cooked her favorite meals, left little notes around the house to remind her how much she meant to me. For a while, it seemed to work. She smiled more, laughed louder, acted like the Emma I fell in love with. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. Then there was the fight, the one that should have been my wake-up call. It happened a few months ago, after I noticed an unfamiliar number popping up on her phone. When I asked about it, she brushed me off, saying it was just a coworker. But the way she avoided eye contact, the way her voice wavered, it stuck with me. "You don't trust me?" she'd snapped, defensive. "Is that what this is about?" "No," I'd said, though part of me wondered if she was right. "I just want honesty." "Well, maybe you should stop looking for problems where there aren't any," she shot back, slamming the bedroom door behind her. That argument haunted me now, sitting alone in my car. If only I'd pushed harder. If only I hadn't let her shut me out. Would things have ended differently? And yet, even as these thoughts swirled in my mind, I couldn't escape the image of her kissing Ryan. No amount of denial could erase what I'd seen. Those moments of happiness we shared, they weren't real anymore. They'd been tainted by secrets and lies, built on a foundation that crumbled the second I walked through that door. The irony hit me like a punch to the gut. All those times I worried about losing her, I already had. She'd slipped away bit by bit, until there was nothing left but the shell of the woman I once loved. I leaned my head against the steering wheel, closing my eyes. The weight of everything pressed down on me, heavy and suffocating. But beneath the pain, there was something else. A flicker of clarity. This wasn't just the end of my marriage. It was the beginning of something new. Something I couldn't see yet, but that I knew I needed. Whatever came next, it wouldn't involve her. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the blinds, but it did little to brighten my mood. My phone buzzed nonstop. Texts, missed calls, voicemails. Friends, coworkers, even distant relatives had heard about what happened at the party. Some offered sympathy, others asked for details, and a few seemed more interested in gossip than anything else. I ignored them all, but one message stood out. It was from Emma. "Please call me. We need to talk." I stared at the screen, her words burning into my brain. Did she really think a conversation could fix this? That after everything, we could sit down like nothing had happened and hash it out over coffee? The thought made me sick. Still, curiosity got the better of me. Against my better judgment, I called her back. She answered on the first ring, her voice trembling. "Thank you for calling." "Don't thank me," I said coldly. "What do you want?" There was a pause, long enough that I almost hung up. Then she spoke, her tone pleading. "I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But can we please meet? Just once? Let me explain." "Explain what?" I snapped, anger flaring again. "How long you've been lying to me. How many times you chose him over me." "No!" she cried, her voice breaking. "It's not like that. I swear it wasn't planned. It just happened." "That's supposed to make it better?" I shot back, gripping the phone tighter. "You kissed your boss, Emma. In front of everyone. Do you have any idea how that makes me look? How it makes you look?" "I didn't mean for anyone to find out," she whispered. "Especially not like that. Please, you have to believe me." "Believe you?" I laughed bitterly. "How can I believe anything you say? Everything about us has been a lie." Silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. Finally, she spoke again, her voice softer now, almost defeated. "I love you. I always have. But I got lost. I don't know how to fix this." "You can't," I said flatly. "Some things can't be fixed." She started crying again, quiet sobs that tugged at something deep inside me. For a split second, I felt sorry for her. Sorry for the mess we'd become. But pity wasn't enough to change my mind. Not this time. "Look," I said, softening slightly despite myself. "I'll handle the divorce papers. You'll get your share of everything, we'll keep it clean. But that's it. No more talking, no more begging. This is done." "Okay," she whispered, barely audible. "If that's what you want." "It is," I said firmly. And with that, I ended the call. Later that day, I decided to clear out my stuff from the house. Walking through the door felt surreal, like stepping into a museum of memories I no longer belonged to. Photos of us lined the walls, smiling faces frozen in time, oblivious to the storm ahead. I packed them away without looking too closely, afraid of what they might stir up. Emma was there, sitting on the couch with her arms wrapped around herself. She looked smaller somehow, like the weight of everything had crushed her spirit. Ryan wasn't around, thankfully. I didn't think I could stomach seeing him right now. We worked in silence, moving between rooms as I gathered my belongings. Occasionally, she'd try to speak, but I shut her down every time. There was nothing left to say. As I loaded the last box into my car, she followed me outside. Her eyes were red and swollen, her face pale. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "For everything." I nodded, unable to respond. Part of me wanted to scream, to unleash all the pain and anger I'd bottled up. But another part, the stronger part, knew it wouldn't help. Words couldn't undo what had been done. Instead, I simply closed the trunk and turned to face her one last time. "Take care of yourself, Emma." And with that, I drove away, leaving behind the life we'd built together, and the woman who had torn it apart. The days that followed felt strange, like walking through fog, unsure of where I was headed but knowing I couldn't go back. My apartment was quiet, almost too quiet. No more shared meals, no late-night conversations, no sound of her laughter filling the space. It was just me now, surrounded by boxes and half-unpacked bags, trying to figure out who I was without her. At first, loneliness hit hard. Nights were the worst. The silence pressed down on me, heavy and suffocating. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my mind. The kiss, the party, the divorce announcement. Each memory stung like salt on an open wound. But slowly something shifted. The anger began to fade, replaced by a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in years. I started journaling, scribbling down thoughts I didn't have the courage to say out loud. Writing helped me untangle the mess inside my head. I realized how much of myself I'd lost in the marriage, how I'd stopped pursuing my dreams, stopped taking risks, stopped living for me. Somewhere along the way, I'd let fear of losing her dictate every decision I made. And for what? To end up here anyway? One evening, as I sat on the balcony watching the sunset, it hit me. This wasn't the end. It was a beginning. Painful, messy, and raw, but still a chance to rebuild. To create a life that was truly mine. I called my best friend, Jake, someone I hadn't talked to in months. "Hey man," I said when he picked up. "You busy?" "Not at all," he replied. "What's up?" "I need a drink. Or 5. He laughed. "Now you're speaking my language. Meet you at O'Malley's in 20. Perfect. That night, over beers and bad karaoke, I opened up to him about everything. The betrayal, the pain, the uncertainty of what came next. He listened without judgment, offering advice only when I asked for it. By the time we left the bar, I felt lighter, like I'd finally exhaled after holding my breath for months. The weeks turned into months, and life began to settle into a new rhythm. I threw myself into work, took up running again, and even started dating casually. Not because I was ready for anything serious, but because I wanted to remind myself that love wasn't dead. Just my marriage. Emma reached out once or twice, asking if we could meet for coffee, but I declined politely. She deserved happiness just like I did, but not together. We were two people heading in opposite directions, and that was okay. Looking back, I don't regret walking away. Sure, it hurt. It still does sometimes. But staying would have meant sacrificing pieces of myself I couldn't afford to lose. Instead, I chose freedom, the kind that comes from standing up for yourself even when it's hard. Now, sitting here with a cup of coffee in hand, I feel hopeful. Not because life is perfect, it's not, but because I'm learning to embrace the imperfections, to find joy in the little things, and to trust myself again. Whatever comes next, I'll face it head on. Because for the first time in a long time, I'm not afraid anymore.